All right. Welcome back to WMMA now with your host, Chuck Stevenson, coming at you with some really unfortunate news here. UFC fighter Jessica Penne just posted on Instagram about an hour ago. I just saw it, and it's a really long message split up into 4 different screen captures, and I'm going to read all of this to you. To all my fans, I am not even sure how to start this or go about addressing this to everyone. I am heartbroken and defeated. USADA has effectively bullied and forced me into retiring from MMA. About 3 years ago, I was advised by my doctor to start an over-the-counter medication that would balance out my extremely deficient hormone levels. I followed the rules to the best of my knowledge and even had prescribed medications rejected when I was informed they violated the stipulations of USADA. With USADA being new to me and most everyone in the UFC at the time, my naivety thought that having a doctor's note recommendation for a simple over-the-counter product would be safe to take. Turns out it wasn't, and I was banned from fighting for 18 months. I was upset because I did not knowingly break the rules, but I took ownership, kept my mouth shut, and served my sentence. During this time, I was repeatedly tested and was clean on everything. This incident was a wake-up call which made me hyper-paranoid about everything I put in my body because the stigma of being thought of as a cheater is humiliating and something that goes deep to my core beliefs that I couldn't be tied to. I went broke during this time and embarrassingly had to do anything I could to make ends meet. I drove for Lyft, taught privates, and anything I could to get by. Finally, when I had served the sanction, all I wanted to do was get back to fighting. I was booked to fight in February of 2019 when I suffered a sprained ankle warming up the day of the fight. I couldn't believe this happened. I felt like I was cursed. The UFC was gracious enough to rebook me in April, but as you may or may not remember, I was pulled from that fight. The reason I was pulled was because of an extremely low level of stanozolol was found in my system, picogram levels. My heart sank. After everything I had gone through by complying and staying quiet just to get my shot back, this happened. I had been tested so many times and had even tested clean days before this actual test was given. I knew this had to be a mistake or some form of contamination. What we thought was going to be an easy determination of cause turned out to be an emotional roller coaster and ended in disaster. I spent thousands of dollars I didn't have testing medications and supplements, most of which were third-party certified that the UFC Performance Institute gave me. The lab I tested my supplements at, Corva Labs in California, actually found the banned substance that USADA was trying to pin on me. I was overjoyed with happiness, thinking that my name would be cleared and I could return to fighting. However, that was not enough for USADA, and even with those test levels and all their evidence showing that the levels found in me were so small that it was clear to everyone that it was not a, quote, performance-enhancing dose, end quote, USADA took it upon themselves to find new samples and retest everything at a lab in Utah. Weeks went by, and after lots of confusion and arguing, USADA comes back and says their test results negated my test's results, and they were handing me my second violation, which comes with a 4-year suspension. At my age, there is no way I can come back in 4 years. At this point, I am lost and defeated. Donna Marcolini and Jeff Nowitzki, who are in charge of athlete health and performance for the UFC and who handle all the dealings with USADA, have believed in me and my case since day one. They have supported me and spent endless hours on my case to prove I did not do anything knowingly and intentionally to cheat. During this 3-year period I've been sidelined, USADA has had to reform some of their rules, which legally gave me a sliver of hope because under these new rules, my first offense should be wiped away with the knowledge and proof of the doctor's advice and compliance I showed to try and follow the rules. It was very clear I didn't knowingly take a banned substance. There is a paper trail to prove it, and I never hid the fact that I took it. As a matter of fact, the only reason they caught it is because I wrote it down and informed them of it. After the so-called second offense, I was subject to multiple interrogations during at which my emotional state of crying and utter disbelief caused me to come across to Nadia, the USADA agent, as, quote, not pleasant, end quote. She showed zero understanding to my emotional state, and I believe she was simply on a witch hunt to show relevance to her job. When she couldn't pin me for how this non-performance enhancing dose got in my system. She essentially told me I was screwed and they would sanction the full 4 years on me unless I ratted out other fighters or coaches that I knew were using PEDs. My mind was blown. At this point, I lost all hope and respect for the USADA program. I am all for a clean sport and the idea of USADA, but to threaten and end a non-cheater's career because they aren't good enough to find the real cheaters on their own is mind-blowing. I have fought this with everything I have, and Donna and Jeff have exhausted every resource they have to prove my innocence. USADA is now acting like the High Sparrows in Game of Thrones and operating in a capacity where they feel untouchable and know 90% of the athletes can't afford to properly defend themselves. As a final insult to all of this, Nadia and USADA have requested that I sign a letter agreeing to their career-ending terms and sanctions against me. I'm here today to tell you that my management team and I did not and will not ever agree to sign this sanction they are imposing. I am innocent, emphasis added by her. I don't know where I go from here. At this point, USADA has held me from making a career and income for the last 3 years, and I am ashamed to say I am broke, defeated, and heartbroken. I have been advised by Jeff and Donna that I have one last shot to try and get back, and that is to hire a lawyer and fight USADA head-on in court, but that could cost upwards of $30,000 to $40,000. My manager has advised me that he is going to start a GoFundMe account to see if we can raise the money needed to fight, but I am not holding my hopes high. I hope with all my heart that you believe in me and know I would never cheat. I love this sport and gave my life to it. Sincerely, Jess. So reading this is pretty heartbreaking. I mean, it's heart-wrenching. You know, it's obviously a shitty situation that she is in. And if what she says is true and she's truly innocent, then it does sound like USADA is screwing her. One interesting point that Jessica brought up was that, you know, it seems like they're not catching the big people on their own. And I think she's making a valid point because in, 3 years of USADA testing, they've found one person using a serious drug to the point where he couldn't deny it. That was with TJ Dillashaw and EPO. So you're telling me that after hundreds of tests on hundreds of fighters, that they've only found one person seriously cheating in 3 years? That definitely says a lot about the effectiveness of USADA. And she also made a good point that they're only catching, you know, the small timers. For example, how many fighters have come in straight from the regionals and got popped right away? Because guess what? They weren't being tested in the regionals. And they didn't, you know, they were still on their cycle or hadn't cycled off long enough before getting signed to the UFC. That's mostly the type of people that USADA is catching. That or like people with ridiculously low levels due to contaminants and they're getting suspended. Stuff like that. I used to think USADA was a good idea. Now I'm starting to really question it myself. Anyway, I wanted to get this news out there. And, you know, I'll look more into this because I do remember with Jessica, she was busted because of the blood passport thing, meaning that it was like an aggregate from multiple tests that they had found something wrong with her. So that kind of conflicts with what she was saying. So there's definitely more to look into this. But basically you have a fighter saying, I'm being forced to retire because I can't earn a living because the drug testing program is trying to screw me. That's basically the gist of what her post was. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Likes always appreciated. And what are you waiting for? Subscribe to the best women's mixed martial arts dedicated platform on YouTube. Be a lot cooler if you did. And we'll see you next time.